The Democratic Republic of Congo, a nation synonymous with vast mineral wealth and breathtaking landscapes, finds itself yet again grappling with the brutal reality of armed conflict. The M23 rebels, a notorious armed group with a history as dark as the mines they plunder, have been on a ruthless rampage, tearing through the eastern provinces of the nation. Their latest conquest, the strategic city of UVIRA, signals a dangerous escalation in their campaign of violence and a deepening of the humanitarian crisis that has plagued the region for decades. The world watches, often with a sense of weary resignation, as this troubled giant of Central Africa stumbles through yet another chapter of bloodshed and displacement. The echoes of past conflicts, with their chilling tales of massacres, sexual violence, and the use of child soldiers, serve as a grim reminder of what is at stake. The international community, often accused of apathy and inaction in the face of DRC's recurring nightmares, is once again being called upon to act before the situation spirals completely out of control. The conflict in eastern DRC is a complex web of grievances, ethnic tensions, and a lust for power and resources. It is a conflict fueled by poverty, where control over mines and trade routes translates into survival for some and unimaginable wealth for a select few. The M23 rebels, with their shadowy alliances and murky agendas, are just one strand in this intricate and tragic tapestry of violence. As the Congolese people brace themselves for what many fear will be another prolonged period of suffering, the question arises, will the world finally heed their cries for help, or will their pleas once again be met with silence and indifference? Only time will tell, but for the millions caught in the crossfire, hope is fading fast. To understand the gravity of the situation in eastern DRC, one must trace the bloody footsteps of the M23 rebels back to their resurgence in late 2024. Their campaign of terror began with a series of calculated strikes on isolated military outposts, gradually expanding their area of control and sowing fear among the civilian population. Their first major victory came in January 2025, with the capture of Goma, the bustling capital of North Kivu province and a vital commercial hub. The fall of Goma sent shockwaves through the region, exposing the weaknesses of the Congolese army and the fragility of the peace that had been so painstakingly built in the aftermath of previous conflicts. Emboldened by their success in Goma, the M23 rebels set their sights on Bukavu, the capital of South Kivu province. In February 2025, Bukavu too fell to the relentless rebel advance, marking a turning point in the conflict. The capture of these two strategic cities provided the M23 with control over key trade routes and access to valuable mineral resources, further fueling their war chest and emboldening their ambitions. The recent capture of UVIRA, the third largest city in the Kivus, signifies a dangerous escalation in the conflict. Situated on the shores of Lake Tanganyika, UVIRA serves as a vital transport hub, and its capture grants the M23 strategic control over a key waterway, further tightening their grip on eastern DRC. The M23 rebels, operating with chilling efficiency and brutality, have unleashed a reign of terror upon the civilian population of eastern DRC. Their tactics, often mirroring those of their predecessors in this conflict-ridden region, are a stark reminder of the horrors that humanity is capable of inflicting upon itself. Forced recruitment, a scourge that has plagued the DRC for decades, is once again rearing its ugly head. Young men and boys, some barely in their teens, are being ripped from their families and forced to fight for a cause they do not believe in. Those who resist are met with swift and brutal retribution, their stories serving as a chilling warning to others who dare defy the rebels. The M23's grip on the areas under their control extends far beyond military might. They have established a parallel administration, collecting taxes, controlling the flow of goods and people, and ruthlessly silencing any voices of dissent. Their control over lucrative mines, particularly those producing coltan, a key component in electronic devices, provides them with a steady stream of income, further fueling their war machine. The world has witnessed this tragic play before, a seemingly endless cycle of violence, displacement, and suffering. Yet the international community's response, often characterized by inertia and a lack of political will, has failed to break this cycle. As the M23 tightens its grip on eastern DRC, the question remains, will the world finally act to end this nightmare, or will it continue to stand by as history repeats itself? The M23's resurgence has plunged eastern DRC and the surrounding region into a humanitarian crisis of immense proportions. Millions are displaced, fleeing their homes in search of safety, only to find themselves caught between the brutality of armed groups and the indifference of the world. Neighboring countries, already grappling with their own challenges, are struggling to cope with the influx of refugees. Burundi, a small nation still bearing the scars of its own civil war, has seen tens of thousands of refugees flood across its borders, placing a strain on its limited resources. The United Nations, often the last hope for those caught in the crossfire, is struggling to provide even the most basic necessities to the displaced. Overcrowded camps with their squalid conditions and inadequate sanitation have become breeding grounds for disease, further compounding the suffering. The regional and international response to the crisis has been sluggish and inadequate. Accusations and counter-accusations fly between governments, while the root causes of the conflict, poverty, impunity, and the illegal exploitation of resources remain unaddressed. The situation in eastern DRC is a stain on the conscience of humanity. It is a stark reminder of our collective failure to protect the vulnerable and to break the cycle of violence that has plagued this region for far too long. The time for empty rhetoric and half-hearted measures is long gone. The world must act, and act decisively, to prevent a humanitarian catastrophe of unimaginable proportions.